Anyway, very, very nice to see you all here. Many familiar faces, haven't seen directly ages. And my friend Jerry is there too. And yes, okay, really nice. I mean, here the weather is now getting less rain. We had a very heavy rain in July, August. Now it's getting a little less, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. And yes, very still so many things are happening. Currently, there are 2 exams are going on. You know, the Gelug International Foundation, all the Gelug monasteries exam is going on. Some part is going on in Sera, others in other monasteries, and then in here in Sera Mey, you know, the Sera Mey monasteries exam is going on. So I'm quite during the day running one place to another place to really to see how things are going and try to run as smooth as possible. So yes, really nice to see you all here. And we will start now. Time is more or less at 8:30 here. People who like to join, they will join slowly. We will start the program. I mean, mainly because now we are also in a raining retreat, 1.5 months. There is a, the retreat, which is called retreat. Mainly the ordained, fully ordained monks, at the Buddha's time, during the raining season, monks, the ordained monks and nuns, they stay in retreat for 3 months during the raining time, because during the raining time, there are so many insects and so many creatures, there to be killed if you walk to, many places. So that's why we are still observing that, but not whole full 3 months, 1.5 months, which we started last, we started last, I think, the 15 days ago. No, I think a month, 15 days ago. So now we have to go another month. And so therefore, I'm going to stay here during the raining retreat. So I feel, I'm quite confident, and nobody will ask me to come to a meeting or anything like that during that time. So I would like to see you all at least once a week for hour and a half. So it is a little bit from the selfish reason, because I would like to see you. And also I thought it is good to have some, sharing our experiences, day-to-day experiences, and experiences in our life. Reading, some of the historical Buddhist sutras. Some of those sutras are very simple, straightforward, and not very complicated when you look at the surface. And so myself, being not all the time, every now and then read this sutra, which collection translated from Pali canon. Pali canon. And it is a huge, it is a huge, but this from here, from time to time, I just open a page and then see, what Buddha is saying and how I'm doing that day mentally, mainly mentally, and also physically and verbally. And, so I thought, we had done this once, 1 or 2 pages we read one of our previous gathering. So these 3 Sundays, starting today, I'm going to read some part of the sutra, then give some, commentary and share with you to see how much that we can, live our lives according to the sutra. So that is the main reason why we are here to have these 3 Sundays. It is half an hour later than our previous gathering. Our previous gathering were 8 o'clock in the evening here, Indian time. But these 3 Sundays, we said 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock. So 8:30 Indian time. Oh yeah. And the structure will be same. We will, set our motivation based on saying those 4 lines: refuge and bodhicitta. Then we will say, several times Chandrasic mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, to really to enhance clarity, stillness, and the compassion. Then we'll start the actual reading the text. Then at the end, we'll have a short dedication, and dedication. So it is almost same structure that we had done in the previous hour gathering. And as we all know, not from the teachings that we have received from those great teachers, but also from the reading the Dhamma texts, and also from our own experiences. The setting right, positive motivation at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of an event, is something very, very useful and helpful during the day and during the event, that we are physically, verbally participating that particular event. And this, then not just a positive, a constructive motivation, but that motivation, if we set that motivation according to the spiritual path that we are following, that means the teachings of the Buddha, and then that again has an extra benefit, not only the positive, constructive intention, motivation that we have to live our life, today's, tomorrow's, and to engage in events, but also live our lives with the spiritual path that we are following. Engage in events or activities, with the spiritual path that we are, following. So that is very, very helpful. Therefore, the Buddhist masters, Theravadan, or any Buddhist tradition, those major Buddhist traditions, when we come together or individually, they always start the day or the event start with saying few lines of such as the refuge or other, few lines from a sutra or from a prayer to set our motivation, which is, I think, very, very wise culture or tradition, which has a great, meaning if we try to follow that. And here, the refuge, as we all know, when we say the lines, those 4 lines or other refuge lines, say the lines verbally or mentally, but also, mentally engage the meaning of those lines, those words, which is in a monastery. In a monastery, the disciplinary teachers, when they give speech to the monks, they say this in a beautiful 2 lines, saying, I'm sure you have heard this before. Siksangbo shenesong. That means nice, beautiful words, say verbally. Siksangbo shenesong. Tensangbo ilagong. The meaningful meanings. Meditate. Those, like today's, those 4 lines, say it verbally. Very, very helpful doing that, learning it that way. If we learn a little bit, bad habit, just verbally saying it, mentally not thinking it, the meaning of those lines, then we will not get the full benefit of the saying the lines. So therefore, when we say the lines, the first line in Tibetan, Sangye Che Tsokji Chok, that is Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Sangye Che Tsokji Chok Namda. Second line, Changchuk Pardo, Changchuk enlightenment, Pardo until, Dagni, Dag, I, Gyapsuche, go for refuge. So it's beautiful, just to say the first line, then recall the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Then, until, enlightenment, I, Tashi, go for refuge. Go for refuge. To the Buddha as a mentor, teacher. Go for refuge to the Dharma as a means, methods to be applied in my life, to be experienced, and go for refuge to Sangha as a, spiritual friends, supporters. So beautiful and a very, very, what you call the, meaning, very, very meaningful to say that line, those 2 lines, and think. Then if you have a time to contemplate a little bit about a reason why we need go for refuge in 3 jewels. And meaning reasons are very, very clear. We can tell from our own experiences. There are many, good things in this world, and there are also many, challenging things. And many of those challenging difficulties, some of them can be solved, can be overcome by using, the modern technologies, using, the money or whatever. But some of those challenges, some of those difficulties cannot be dealt with, or cannot be removed by whatever worldly solutions are there. And going for refuge to three jewels is really very much for that reason, for that purpose, the purpose of the reason some of those like attachment, aversion, anger, jealousy, envy, ignorance. These cannot be removed, cannot be dealt with by the money, by the power, by the whatever. Only the Dharma, Dharma can really, help solve these problems. And thinking about that, So when you have time, and sometimes to really contemplate the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dharma, qualities of the Sangha, then, say the lines, refuge lines. And the same in the Bodhicitta, last two lines. Dagi jinso jibi, tsonam ji, daki by me, jinso. Generosity and etc. that we, other virtues, jiba, I have created, I have, accumulated or created, such as virtues, such as generosity, practicing generosities or others. Dagi jinso jibi, tsonam ji, dollar pencher, in order to benefit all living beings, sanje tobasho, may I experience fully, awakened mind. So beautiful again, whatever virtues, wholesome, that we are able to do, small or big, all those virtues, wholesome, to really, dedicate towards the causes and conditions that, to experience fully awakened mind in order to serve all living beings. That a very simple, the word by word translation. But then, of course, when we read Shantidev's Guide to the Bodhisattvas Way of Life, very, very beautiful, this mind, bodhicitta, bodhicitta. And those are the things that we need to do. When we have free time, when you have a little bit relaxing time, just read one or two verses. I'm sure most of you have, the Shantidev's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. A beautiful text to read. Only those chapter 9 is a little bit difficult to follow. Rest, very simple, easy to understand. And there are many these days. There are many good, beautiful translations too. So just read one or two, and then when we say like this kind of lines, we will feel from the heart that the altruistic awakened mind. So anyway, here what I'm suggesting, what I'm doing is trying to live our lives. Start the day with like these two minds, and then, or when we going to engage in any activities, start with these two minds as a Buddhist, as a following the Bodhisattva and the teachings. Then, whether that event lasts hour or full day, that event may be just daily routine activities, or something very unique, particular, event. But if we start with those two minds, if we carry on like that, then that will be very, very what you call mentally and extremely helpful to ourselves and also people that we interact with these two minds. Though in actual interaction may be difficult, those two minds are very, very much at the forefront. But if we start with these two minds, very, very helpful. So that is the a brief, suggestion, importance of having these two minds at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the event. So we will say the refuge and bodhicitta lines together. Sanje chetan soji chonam la chanjo pado dane jaso chen dagi jeso jibe sonamanje dola penje sanje dropa so. Sanje chedan soji chonam la chanjo pado dane jaso che dagi jeso jibe sonam dola penje sanje doba. Sanje chedan soji chonam la chanjo pado dane jaso che dagi jeso jibe sonam dola penje sanje dobara sho. With the refuge and bodhicitta as our main motivation to join this gathering. Now we will say a few times together, Charisic mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. You can use the sound of the mantra just to, cultivate stillness, mental qualities of stillness and the clarity, simply to stay with that kind of, clear awareness, or also you can bring, while we are saying the mantra, cultivate, develop, experience strong sense of compassion, starting to oneself, one's own loved ones, and then gradually to extend to, towards all living beings, to express your deep sense of loving kindness or great compassion while we are saying the mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. Omane Omane Oh, yeah. Thank you. So today, our reading the sutra, the title is called Enlightenment. Enlightenment. That is the title of the section that we are reading. So, Buddha, historical Buddha, is clearly saying in this short sutra. It is, the section itself is relatively short, not that long, but it is very clearly saying, where we are where we are here, right here and now, with this body, with this environment, and then our surrounding, and so forth. To live our life, with less, at least mentally with less, challenges or difficulties, then it is important. It is important, or it is helpful to try to understand, the things and events around us. Try to understand as they are, as they are, and that is what here, or the key message. Try to understand, try to see, the things and events internally and externally, and around us, our surrounding. Try to understand as much as we can, try to understand as they are. And this is what, the first part of the sutra, the title is called Enlightenment. Enlightenment is here in this sutra, and also coming sutras. And as you know, people who have read, studied this short, very, very important, the Buddha's first teaching, the Four Noble Truths Sutra, which is very short. And there also Buddha clearly stated, end of the sutra, after Buddha explained, what is the first noble truth, what is the second, third, and the fourth, after explaining, the Four Noble Truths in a 3-round. And at the end of the conclusion of the sutra, Buddha said, with regard to the Four Noble Truths that I have taught, if, what I have taught is right, correct, then I will claim I am enlightened being. If, what I have said, what I have taught with regard to the Four Noble Truths, then, if that's not correct, if there are mistakes, then I will not claim as a enlightened beings. And that's what Buddha said. That's what Buddha said in the Four Noble Truths Sutra. And then many of you have, read that sutra. And people who haven't read that sutra, I would, suggest, particularly if you are relatively new in Buddhist circle, and before reading very, those very blissful, very exotic texts, I would suggest you to read that sutra. It has just, I think, less than 1.5 A4 size, and not more than that. Very, very, very beautiful and very, important text as a, the Buddha, historical Buddha himself has taught. So that is what here Buddha said. And in the quotation, under the quotation, Bhikshu. So Bhikshu is the monks that Buddha is teaching. Buddha, historical Buddha, taught teaching nearly 40 years, or 40-something years after his enlightenment. And of course, if we read some of those sutras background, who are there as a students or listener, they are not only monks and nuns, but also they are ordinary local people, But many of these sutras were taught mainly to the bhikshus. So then, therefore, always start very often quotes like this: bhikshus, before my enlightenment, while I was just a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me, what is the gratification in the world? That's the first one. And question. The second, what is the danger in the world? That's the second question. And the third question, what is the escape from it? So that is the third question. So Buddha is clearly saying, while he was in the training, Bodhisattva, in the training, it clearly said, not yet fully enlightened. And, these three questions occurred. He thought about these three questions, what is the gratification in the world? That, say, for example, right here and now, it seems, occasionally I read, the news online. All the news articles are always gloom and difficult and painful and all those things. But there are joys, there are happiness, there are fulfillment in the world where we live. Not all the time, not all the things and events are, sort of immediately, bring us pain and suffering and the difficulties. That is clear from our own experiences. Say, for example, naturally occurring, happening, taking place, like aging. It has different ages. When we reach different stages of the age, with that aging, there are some joys, happiness, some fulfillment. Not all the time. So there are. But, many from my own experiences, I'm talking about my own experience, those joys and happiness and fulfillment from the naturally occurring process of aging, is very much overwhelmed by the day-to-day, those busy, other things. We don't sort of pay that much attention. We don't sort of, be aware of, the joys and happiness and fulfillment from the naturally occurring, the process of aging. Of course, there is, so gratification. I will quote another beautiful verse from the sutra, which I'm, not this sutra that we are reading, another sutra that I need to read this coming full moon day in the monastery. I need to read. So I'm memorizing this, and there's one nice verse, and it's saying, what you call the 제대로 봉화 매도래 카도티라 메뉴바 코아심니 푸와타 대신 투바 통도교. So the which you have heard this before, those bees, those insects, bees who are, they're taking honeys from the flowers. They take the honeys from the flowers, without disturbing the colors, smells of the flowers, like that. The enlightened beings, while they go to the world, they take the essence of whatever is there, but without disturbing their mind by the worldly things and events. Our mind is very often, that pain, the fear, concern, worry, when we interact with the things and events, it is many, not all the time, I'm not saying 100%, but the high percentage is very much how we sort of perceive these things and events. And that is one of the main problems, one of the main difficulties. So that's, and here then the will come slowly. Then when the Buddha is after asking those three questions, then the sutra continues. Then, Bhikshu, it occurred to me the pleasure and the joy that arise in dependence on the world. That is, this is gratification in the world. So that's what Buddha said. Buddha said there are joys, there are happiness, fulfillment in the world. Dependent or based on worldly things and events, surroundings, we can experience joys, pleasures, happiness, and fulfillment. And that is what here, for me, I want happiness, fulfillment, forever, without changing. And that's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem. Not really experiencing right here and now, whatever joy is there, whatever pleasure is there, whatever fulfillment is there, due to encountering a person, encountering a thing, or encountering an event, all things and events that we encounter in this world, there's always, a sort of, mix, not 100%, some kind of unpleasant or negative. And in the Buddha's, like the, So that is what it says. This is the gratification in the world. So we need to learn. That is what here the practice of mindfulness, practice of what you call the awareness, is something very, very helpful practice. Be aware of the what you call the full picture, complete, not the partial. Usually when we encounter an event or an object or internal whatever desire or yearning, longing or fear, we only look at partial of that thing, that event, that object, not the whole. So therefore, there is this mentally, therefore we constantly, what you call face challenges, difficulties. Either we can see that thing or that event very much attractive, very much, what you call desirable, or we may see that thing very much undesirable, unattractive, and very much want to keep distance, difficult to look at neutral, or look at the full picture of that thing or the event, including the mental state, isn't it? So that is what here. and to experience joy, pleasure in the world, in the worldly activities, worldly things and events. We sort of have the ability to see the things and events in a fuller picture, not a partial. Not a partial, and that's what here. So that is the briefly what Buddha answer to that the first question, and then we will see a little bit detail later. But then he answered briefly answered the second question. Second question is, what is the danger in it? That's the second question. What is the danger in it? And there Buddha said this, that the world is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in the world. So that is the answer to the second question. Because here Buddha said, the world is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger in the world. So going back to some of the basic the what Buddha taught in his first teaching. Historical Buddha, when we read these texts, like this kind of sutra, every now and then he reminds us, the importance to understand the nature of nature of impermanence. Very often he, reminds us. And when we recite some of these sutras, as I mentioned earlier, recently I've been memorizing this sutra, and it's just amazing, how often that he talks about the nature of impermanence. Nature of impermanence. And many, if we are able to fully aware of this nature of impermanence of the things and events, it seems we will have a tremendous sense of or on the other side of the coin is may reduce lots of our anxieties, worries, fears. The fear and the desire, or the craving. These two are the craving or clinging. These two are the really main, when we observe, main forces that us to act very unfairly, very non-virtuously, the fear. Somehow that either it is naturally here or gradually developed, I don't know. But we have that kind of sense of fear, and with fear, it occurs, within us occurs sense of that kind of wanting, that kind of wanting or craving. If we really closely observe our attitude, and this, understanding of nature of impermanence is really what you call the key medicine to really cure that fear and that craving. So here it says, the world is impermanent and suffering and subject to change. And this is the danger in the world. So danger, in the sense, that is the nature of the world, where we live. Where we live. Like what you call the verse that are called, that analogies bees, what you call taking the honey very nicely without disturbing the color and smells of the flowers. The flowers, what they are, the honeys that they are taking is very, very fragile, easy to be destroyed, isn't it? It's nature. But the bees has the ability, skill to take the essence, but not destroying the, what you call the color and the smells. And we can live our lives. We can live our lives in this world, right here and now. To really the surrounding and the things and events, that we have around us, including our body, our brain, and everything, that we can live with them, use them as our needs, but not, by using them, not to cause pain to ourselves. How can we do that? And that is here important. And Buddha said later, we will see that. He said, when he become fully enlightened, when he sees those things and events, those three questions, and when he got the answer very clearly, that means see them as it is, then, so that is here. And here, the suffering and subject to change. This is the danger in the world. So that is the briefly answer to the second question. And the third question is, what is the escape from it? What is the escape from it? And here the answer is the removal and abandonment of desire and lust for the world. So that is how to escape from the danger and from the those that is really very nicely put it with a very he said the removal and abandonment of desire and lust for the world. That is the escape from the world. So he is not saying physically run away from the world where we are. What he's saying is mentally train ourselves not to attach. And that is what Buddha is saying. Mentally train ourselves. So how to train ourselves? To remove desire or craving or lust. And that is, as in the earlier regarding to the nature of the impermanence, regarding to the subject of change, those subject to change, those understanding are the tools to remove, craving and lust and desire. And that is so this, in this short sutra, asking those three very, very simple questions and answering very simple, giving three simple answers. Yet, to put into practice is not that easy for us right here and now. But that doesn't mean, it is impossible. It is perfectly possible. Perfectly possible to do that. Not saying perfectly possible, everything right here and now completely, but step by step, training, step by step. Because this are, and the mind that we have, is fully capable to train, to change. Anyway, the one sutra I want to quote, but it's not coming. Anyway, so that is here. This, with regard to Buddha is talking about, the title is Enlightenment. Title is Enlightenment. And to talk about enlightenment, he raised these three questions. And if, at the end of the sutra, what he is saying, if we get the right answer to those three questions, then that is enlightenment. Then he can claim himself as an enlightened being. So here, to become enlightened beings, it is clearly that we can see, according to the historical Buddha, it is a mental transformation, relation to the world that we live. In our current, mentally, how we perceive the things and events, how we see them, how we, deal with them. It is, enlightenment is very much mentally, dealing with them rightly and correctly, and that's what here. So I'll read briefly. Continue to read the sutra briefly. Then the sutra continues. So long, Bhikshu, as I did not directly know, as there really are, the gratification in the world, as gratification, the danger as danger, and escape from it as escape, I did not claim to have awakened to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment in this world. So that is really beautifully, that's what Buddha is saying. What we know, he will, he will not claim, unless if we understand gratification as a gratification, danger as a danger, to escape from it as a escape from it. If we didn't get it correctly, as it is, as they are, then he will not claim he's enlightened. So, going back to the point that I raised earlier, that what you call the practice of mindfulness. Here, that is why it is so important for us, really be aware of what is happening with our body, speech, and mind, and surrounding the environment, the things and events. and try to understand their nature as they are. They have the ability to raise gratification, joy, happiness. They are also subject to change. They are also subject, to bring suffering. They are also impermanent. That is here. And there's also, way to escape from them. That is, what you call removing the attachment, the craving, clinging. Mm-hmm. Okay. So these are some. I deliberately bring this sutra to talk, to share with you some of those basic, things that we need to, remember. The what you call our spiritual journey. If we say to want to experience enlightenment, it is through the mental, process, and it is through interaction with the things and events around us and within us, not something outside from this planet. It is some things within us, around us, dealing with them, relating with them, and that is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I will read in the same sutra. Here the Buddha, say like this: gratification. Bhikshus are set out seeking the gratification in the world. Whatever gratification there is in the world that I found, I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the gratification in the world extends. So this one, I try to understand the full meaning of this. When particularly the last line, when it says, I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the gratification in the world extends. So here the meaning, it seems to me when I read again and again and think about, to understand the gratification, the joys, happiness that we talked about earlier when it says that when Buddha introduced what is gratification, he says, it occurred to me the pleasure and the joy that arise in dependence on the world. This is the gratification. And that's what the Buddha said, the pleasure and joy that we experience, relation to the worldly things and events. That is, he is not talking about joys and happiness and fulfillment, due to experiencing some enlightened objects, some enlightened things. He's not saying that. What he's saying is, the things and events that we have around us or within us, and when we interact with them, and through that interaction, when we experience joys, happiness, pleasure, that is what here, Buddha is talking about gratification. And the that the line that I just read, when he says, that I have found, I have clearly seen with wisdom just how far the gratification in the world extends. So seeing the gratification as gratification is, through the wisdom, not just emotionally. Gratification, joys, pleasure, these are emotional side of the mental state, emotional aspect of the mental state. But to see them as they are, how they arise, from what, what are the causes, the pleasure, the joy that I experience right here and now, and the pleasure and the joy or the gratification itself. So to understand that, then it's through the wisdom, through the wisdom. When we, try to understand the gratification or the joy or pleasure, that arise from the things and events, earlier that he says, arise dependence on the world, arise from the things and events around us, to understand their full joys and happiness, their full nature as a joy, as a happiness, as a gratification, then it is the wisdom, not the joy itself, not that emotional aspect. It is the wisdom that will give us the full understanding of the gratification or the joy or the pleasure. And then here, then we need to look at the nature. When we talk about wisdom, then it comes, for example, the pleasure that occur from having a delicious cup of coffee. It is pleasure. Or having a very pleasant walk, a mile or like that. It is pleasure, it is joy. But that joy, that pleasure, which arises from walk, from having a cup of coffee, it has to understand as a joy and its full aspect, full sort of nature, then the wisdom will help. In there is a nature of impermanence. There is a nature of dependence. There's a nature of process or arising, and so forth. In that way, then the Buddha is saying to see or to understand as a gratification. To do that, then wisdom is required. It is not just simply observing joy itself. It is not just simply observing or aware of the joy or the pleasure or the gratification. To understand its full as a gratification as it is, then need to understand its fuller nature as impermanence, as dependently arising, and so forth. So that is here, which is something very, I found very nice to read, that to bring those we are looking at the first question now, looking a little bit detail. What is the gratification in the world? And the Buddha answer, the pleasure and joy that arise in dependence on the world. That is every answer, that is gratification. Then, going a little bit detail earlier, that says, as long as I did not directly know as they really are the gratification in the world, then he will not claim as enlightened. So then the answer comes, how then it is that says, I have clearly seen with the wisdom just how far the gratification in the world extends. So to understand the nature of gratification, or to understand gratification as it is, or as it is in the sense its full nature, then it is through the wisdom. In that case here, then, to reflecting or to contemplating the joy that we experience from the walk, joy that we experience from the having, a nice cup of coffee, and understanding its full nature of impermanence, nature of subject of change, all those things. That is here. Okay. I've said quite a lot, but I've said quite a lot in repeating similar, same things again and again. The people keep saying I have a what you call bad habit, repeating things again and again. But I found that is, important habit. Repeating again and again is the way to really learn some of these important or the useful subject. Just unless we are very, what you call very sharp faculty, learner, then it is just saying once that will be enough. But the other ways need repeat again and again to really to sink into, deep down in our psyche. Then need to repeat again and again. Otherwise, difficult. So that is something important for us to remember. The first point, what I'm saying is, in the world where we are, where we live, the things and events that we have, these things and events, the world where we live, they have the capacity to bring joys, happiness, and fulfillment. That is the important. Not to overwhelm by what is happening in the world, this war and many other things. There's no doubt that lots of things are happening right now, in the world, many sad things happening. But at the same time, try to understand at their day-to-day life, how we live, and for our mind not to be overwhelmed by the external, those, the sad situations. Sometimes it is important us to learn, the joys and happiness, the pleasure are there while we interact with the things, events, isn't it? But at the same time, try to understand, these are not permanent. These are impermanent. These are subject to change. And that is the second one. That's the answer, what is the danger in it? What is the danger in it? So the things and events that we have, that we live, that we share, including this body that we have, it is impermanent. It is subject to change. It has it is, if we use the term here, it is suffering by nature. And that is also important to be aware of that. To be aware of that, to understand as they are. Here, with regard to the second answer, to a little bit extend the previous one, it says, I set out seeking the danger in the world. Whatever danger there is in the world that I have found, I've clearly seen with the wisdom just how far the danger in the world extends. So that is, again, those, if we understand, the things that we have, events that we participate, they are subject to change. They are impermanence. Then, when we interact with them, there is a wisdom. Then they won't, when they change, because they are subject to change, because they are impermanent, they will change. When change take place, there won't be shock. There won't be, that kind of surprise, that kind of anxiety, worry, because we know it is, or they are impermanent, they are subject to change. Isn't it? So that is here. Because, as you know, I say this very often, and these days, Wednesday morning, now, 1.5 months ago, or even a little longer, every Wednesday morning, I lead 1 hour class to the monks in the debating courtyard before they start debating. And, I have said this many times. Many of them, they know this, these beautiful analogies, saying that, among the many footprints, elephant footprints is the most impressive. And among the many, mental states, the mindfulness is the most. Among the many, the mindfulness of impermanence is the most, powerful mindfulness, or, recollection, whatever we call it, Midakpa Temba in Tibetan. So like that. So, I don't know how much they pay attention, because, they're all age under 40 and full of energy, full of excitement. The other day I said to them, look, you have no, no awareness, no worry about the inflation is going up and up and up, because, and their foods are, they don't need to pay anything, everything is free. And so they have no worry about the money that the kitchen, the monks who are in charge of the kitchen, how much they pay for all those things they are eating. So they all laugh. I said, you have no sort of awareness what's happening, the increasing the cost of the food, and like that. Sometimes I see that they are living in a very much parallel world, that they have no understanding all these things. And anyway, so the nature of understanding of nature of impermanence, recalling, remembering the things and events, and gaining with the wisdom. Here Buddha clearly said, that I have clearly seen with the wisdom just as how far the danger of the world extends. So that is in the short answer, in the previous short answer, when he said, that the world is impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. This is the danger of the world. Danger in the sense when we are not aware of it, when we don't pay attention to their nature, then we can say it is danger, because that causes us pain, suffering, fear, concern, all sorts of things. In that sense, they are danger. Otherwise, being impermanent is nothing danger. Being subject to change is nothing danger. What is danger is when we are not aware of that. Then that nature is danger for us. So that is the second one. And the third one is the third question: what is the escape from it? And the short answer, it says removal and abandonment of desire and lust of the world. This is the escape from the world. And then when Buddha explained a little bit detail in the next page, then he says, I set out seeking the escape from the world. Whatever escape there is from the world that I found, I've clearly seen with wisdom just how far the escape from the world extends. So that is wisdom. Here, Buddha repeated each time when he talk about to see, to understand, the gratification as it is, to see, to understand danger as it is, to see, to understand escape as it is. The wisdom is the key sort of tools that Buddha, repeated. So now you hear the, wisdom, or the knowledge, the understanding, in terms of the progress to grow wisdom, to cultivate wisdom. It is very much, in terms of the process, to have a wisdom, to have an understanding, to understand as they are. Then it is not all the time, but generally, particularly this kind of important subject, it starts from the question, asking question, or in the what you call the in the pramana, some of those Buddhist epistemological texts. It says from the doubt, start from the doubt, then it moves further and further. If we don't have any doubt, then, difficult to wisdom to be cultivated, to be grown. If we have a doubt, say that, then whether it is impermanent or not, whether it is subject to change or not, when doubt start to occur, then that will lead us to search the answer. And searching answer then gradually will lead us to gain the understanding, wisdom. In this Buddhist epistemological text, they have these steps. Touching Zin Gilotok. Touching Zin Gilotok, that means, extreme, extreme view. That is the first one. Extreme view. When we have extreme view, then when that extreme view is challenged by by something, then what will have a doubt. Initially we have this, that it is how it is. We just have that view, extreme view. We hold like that. But when that extreme view is challenged, the next step is we have a doubt. Oh, that may not be like that. Earlier I hold in this way, I view in this way, very 100%, or sometimes 110%. But now seems it may not be like that. Then doubt will occur. When we pursue further to get some answer to that doubt, to clear or to reduce that doubt, to get an answer, then what we will have, when we find when we move towards the right direction, our analysis is going right direction, then the next step is, in Tibetan, it's called yichur. That means the assumption. Assumption, oh, that is how it is. My previous, view is wrong because, it has said this, it has taught this, it has explained like this. That's, that is assumption. When that is what we have gained, assumption, and then we go further to use, what's called critical analysis, really, then we will have the first level of understanding, proper understanding. And that is what here, in the Buddhist epistemological text, how the knowledge is gained, how the knowledge is developed from the different stages. So that is here also, this morning when I was preparing to talk to you, reading this text itself, I found is quite interesting. Buddha raised questions, start from the questions, then try to seek answer. That itself, the structure, whether Buddha taught in that particular fashion or not, I don't know. But the text, how the text is structured, and it is start from the question. So that is something useful to know. Okay. So now we are close to our time to finish. And we will leave it here now. Just a few minutes there. We'll do a dedication. And and I want to say before the dedication, our one of our best friends, Mike Myrie, many of you know, his mother passed away yesterday evening. and her name is Isabel Murray. And Mike, was looking after her more than 5-6 years. He more or less moved to this small village up in the north of just outside London towards, and he had been looking after her all these years. Very, very, great example how, to show as a great practitioner and, not really putting her in an old people's house or like that, trying to keep her in her home until she passed away. So anyway, dedicate, say a prayer for her to have another very, the good rebirth. And also Mike, I think he has a sister. They all, not to be overwhelmed by her loss, so to do the dedication. Many of you know Mike Murray, who worked very hard in Jamia for many, many years. Oh yeah, so. Chanjo, Samjo, Rinpoche, Maje, Panam, Jeju, Jeba, Nyamba, Meba, Kongne, Kongdo, Pewa, Sho, Kare, Rave, Kore, Shingamade, Penda, Dewa, Mali, Joen, Jere, Sewa, Tenzin, Jazo, Shabe, Side, Pado, Tenjuro, Oh yeah. Thank you. And see you all next Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe Tashi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.